Hi, I'm Ali Zendrian, editor-in-chief of Brand News, and this is the Financial Services News You Might Have Missed podcast. This is where I uncover news gems that might not have gotten their full chance to sparkle, and I dust them off a little bit. I'm joined by my trusted co-host, and more importantly, my personal financial advisor, Brandon Galisi of Galisi Financial. Brandon, it sounds like you've been having a good week. I'm very excited for you.
Yeah, the week's been solid. Had a really good conversation with a potential client who I think might have found me on the internet. Not 100% sure still. We're a little bit confused how we got connected, but we'll take it. So that was exciting. And I met with someone else this week, and they left me a very nice review on Google, which it's always makes you feel good. And you already posted about this on LinkedIn, so I know it's public. You've got some exciting news to share from your past weekend.
I do, yes. So first of all, I love that you've had that experience because it's definitely nice when you have these. Yeah, I have no idea how you wound up, but also, yay.
Right. Yeah, those are always nice surprises.
Yes, definitely. So yes, I can announce that we have picked out our new puppy. It will be part of the family starting November 29th, the Saturday of Thanksgiving. Its name is going to be Pluto. And yeah, it was super exciting. We went up to Saratoga to go pick it out in person, like a 4.5 hour drive or so. But yeah, great to see all those puppies. And it was a nice core memory. They had the puppies in a playpen. So my daughter got right in there and was playing with all of them. And it's like, if for nothing else, I hope that this like makes your life.
Playpen of puppies. I mean, I feel that's pretty much every kid's dream right there.
Right? Like, if I could just do that all day, I wouldn't be sad about it.
Yeah. And plus she's going to get to take one of them home in a couple of weeks. Yeah, so even better, not just hanging out with puppies, getting to adopt one of those great puppies too.
Yeah, exactly. So we're looking forward to it, but yay.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's super exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. So getting to this week's news, our first bit of news is from Nitrogen. It's an AtoZ communications client. The firm's Fearless Investing Summit, which is an ever-popular financial advisor conference, is going to be this February in Denver. The theme for this year's event is Crush It During Every Meeting, and features speakers including Nitrogen CEO Dan Zitting, co-founder Aaron Klein, who's now involved in his own business Contio, Hamachi AI's Eric Clark, and then Michael Kitsis and Josh Brown. What I thought was super interesting about this conference is the crush it during every meeting concept. When I was thinking about it, if you get down to it, I think when we fill our tech stacks, I say we as if I'm a financial planner, I barely have a tech stack, but I presume when one puts together their own, there's this focus on need financial planning tools, and I need something related to estate planning, and I need this, and I need a CRM. And at the end of the day, really all these tools are just about making sure that during every meeting, whether you're virtual, in person, whatever, you need to crush that meeting. There's really no better way to put it than that. So I was super excited for that. I would to hear your thoughts.
And especially since we talk so much about AI and having AI do what AI does best, this is where the human gets to come into play, where I feel like we can really set ourselves apart if we're crushing meetings. And again, we're doing things behind the scenes to make it easier to have that meaningful conversation, whether that's data input that's a little bit faster, whether that's looking at a client engagement tool, something even like, obviously shout out my favorite tool, Elements, that makes it easier to have those meaningful conversations. Those are going to be the things that, again, the actual conversation itself, AI is not going to be able to do that. I think there's going to be a very, very small subset of the population that even we'll say would be qualified for a financial advisor planning client. A lot of folks might be on the DIY side, might go to something that's maybe a little bit more AI focused. But I think for a lot of folks, again, especially as the stakes and their problems get larger, like retiring or managing large sums of money when the risk is much higher, the stakes are much higher. I think that's going to be ever important to, again, focus on that human connection. So it's great that they're talking about, again, the one thing that, in my humble opinion, I really don't think AI is going to replace anytime soon, at least for most clients that we're even going to have an opportunity to connect with. So I think it's a great topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, at the end of the day, and credit to Diana Cabrices for ingraining this in my brain, people buy from people. So whether it's financial services, so in my instance, like me and you, or whether it's anything else, you can have a lovely brand behind it and it could be a great business and all these other things. But if I'm not engaging with you in a way that I think makes sense, and as we go through every meeting, I'm not like, you know what, Brandon totally knows what he's doing. I'm so glad that I picked him. At some point it's going to fall off the cart, and then I'll just go somewhere else where I find said next person who crushed their meeting. So yeah, I think that it's really smart to think of things like that, and that everything is about those human interactions that we have with each other. So So long as in whatever amount of time that we're together, you feel like this is fabulous, let's just keep going.
Right. And it's a focus that could almost get lost with all the shiny objects or all the tools, which I've got some thoughts for a different news piece that we have later on that. So more to come. But it's so easy to get caught up in thinking you need every single piece of technology for your practice, when in reality, what are we ultimately trying to accomplish? Even with, okay, I've got this cool tax software. What am I trying to do? I'm not just trying to give a client a report, even no matter how beautifully well laid out this report is and how efficient it was for me to create. What am I trying to communicate? And typically there's some meaningful conversation or value that I'm trying to provide to the client. And again, how it might help that meaningful conversation. But if it's just, oh, let me do this so I can get out more reports, I'm pretty sure, Allie, do you want just more reports for the sake of getting more? No one does, right? But if it's relevant, meaningful, and it's helping you save money on taxes or whatever the case might be, when it's relevant, it's not about the report, it's about the meaning behind it. So I think, again, just this reframe to how do we crush these meetings? How do we have great conversations? And then use our tools, tech stacks to gain efficiencies to then share in those meetings versus just, I heard a client service calendar was a great idea, so here's a tax report for April. If it doesn't provide value in the client's mind, it's not ours, the client's mind, it's not that much. So again, focus on the meaningful conversations. Love it.
Absolutely. And I have to say, I appreciate the fact that you don't just send me things for the sake of things, because as a single mom of two, I'm not reading things for the sake of it. I'm reading it because you told me that it was very important.
Right. Yeah. It's always the context, the why, the purpose. Hey, this is valuable because of X, Y, or Z. And then, yeah.
Love it. So our second bit of news is Rippling's report, which actually might be the thing that you're pointing toward. Rippling's report notes that software sprawl is a major resource drain for HR, IT, and finance departments. So first of all, I had never heard the concept software sprawl before, but love it. It was the smartest thing that I've ever heard. So good job there. In the press release, it said that fragmented technology stacks place a significant burden on organizations, requiring substantial investments of time and budget, leading to inefficiencies, frustration, and waste. So again, well put and absolutely true. And the report found that 85% of people use more than 3 software tools just in their own departments, which I feel like, again, so I am not a financial planner, but I would presume you have at least 3 pieces of software. I could probably name 3 pieces of software that I have, and I'm not doing financial planning.
Right. Yes, you nailed it. This was definitely the article that I was referring, that I teased in the last bit. Yeah, I mean, if I found an advisor that only has 3, I would be incredibly surprised. I mean, even for me, I try to keep things as simple as possible. But even if you do have a niche, and I don't have a super as tightly defined right now, it's typically business owners, 6-figure plus professionals. So not as niche as 2-year-old doctors in Florida or something like that. But even if someone had that tight of a niche, there's just different planning tools that specialize. I mean, there's some softwares that are kind of decent at many things, but not really great at any of them. And then there's other more specific softwares that, again, we'll just call, we've shouted them out on the podcast before, I believe, but Holistaplan is going to be excellent for tax planning. And it almost only does tax planning. I think they're adding some other modules, but that would be separate from maybe your traditional planning tool. And then if you have anything from an estate perspective, an engagement tool. So like very quickly, even if you're intentional, you're likely going to have much more than 3. And then I think from that point, and I'm really passionate about this, I'm only going to these additional tools. I've got my core stack that I'll use consistently as my source of truth, if you will. For me, that's going to be Elements. And then if I need to build a retirement income plan, I'm shifting over to Income Lab, who we've talked about on the podcast. Amazing tool for retirement income. Or again, I just mentioned Holistaplan if I'm looking at some tax projections for a particular client. Even then, I'm not just for the sake of I need to enter in all the data everywhere. No, not until I need it. And at least for me, that's how I feel like I'm a little bit more efficient instead of just trying to always do all of the things all at once. What's the client question? What does the client need right now? That's when I'm going to go. If taxes aren't a priority whatsoever, I'm not going to use Holistaplan yet. But it will be valuable at some point. So that's kind of how I try to at least stay lean and stay efficient. I definitely do have more than 3 tools for sure, but I try to minimize the time that I'm switching back and forth and making sure that it truly is, if I'm in here, I'm answering a question for a specific client that is relevant to them at this exact moment versus just playing Office or, again, coming up with reports for the sake of coming up with reports. So
Yeah.
even for you, how do you manage your tech stack? Again, maybe you don't have as many as the typical independent financial advisor, but it sounds like you've got already more than 3 and you're a business owner. So how are you managing switching back and forth between the different programs you have?
So it's interesting what you brought up. So up until we had this conversation, I was more inclined to the tools that are the more in one or the most in one, where, look, I just want to be in my zone and I want to do my thing and all my stuff is there. But actually, as we're thinking about it, and I don't want to call them out because I don't want to put anybody on the spotlight like that, but I had an option between 2 different note takers, and one of them is something that I use for something else. And so on the one hand, being of that mindset of most in one or more than one in one, I was sort of leaning toward that avenue. But at the same time, I'm actually kind of seeing that fall behind a little bit, and the other note taker that I used to use is a little bit better, but also kind of a pain in the butt because it's not all mixed together. So it just sort of makes you feel like, why can't we just get all of the things right in one place? I don't know why that seems to be asking so much.
Yeah, you're definitely not in the financial planning space at this point. I think the closest that we might get, we tossed this out, I think last week or the week before, but eMoney and Asset Map, for example, the fact that they're going to be able to integrate and likely, it sounds like, share some data back and forth, things like that. And hopefully we see more of that in the space. Or also, I'll be honest, maybe an unpopular take. I think financial advisors are way too focused on everything integrating perfectly together. Like for me, I'll occasionally, I might use a spreadsheet, again, only very specific times, and I might have to manually put some data in at times, but it's less than 5 minutes of my time or less than 10 minutes. And it's for a task that I'm not doing on an ongoing basis. So I think sometimes advisors, well, does it integrate with all of these other tools? And even if it does, if one, the integration breaks, then now all hell has broken loose. You got to figure that part out. And 2, and I also track my time for this, how much time is it actually taking? If it takes you 5 minutes a time and you do it 10 times a year, do you really need an all-in-one tool to save you 100 minutes? So again, that's my unpopular take. Advisors are way too focused on automation, almost for automation's sake. Again, back to what I am a broken record about. What's the purpose of this thing? What are we truly trying to solve? And is it even worth going through this hassle to integrate everything perfectly or to get an all-in-one platform that might end up being mediocre at most of those things versus just grit your teeth a little bit. Fine, it takes me an extra 5 or 10 minutes each time I have to do this task, but just audit the time. If it's going to be, this automation is going to save me 100 hours a year. Okay, that's probably worth considering. This is going to save me a couple of hours per year. Is it worth it? I don't know. I'll let the advisor be the judge. But again, yeah, focus so much on automation. What's the true purpose behind it? And there's my hot take for the day.
Yeah. You know what? I appreciate that. So I think it's a tough balance between you want the best of what you can get, and obviously, and I appreciate the fact that you are giving that because obviously I am one of the receivers of that, but wanting to get the best product at the end of the day is really the goal. So I do agree from that standpoint of if something else is going to give you the mediocre response, then it's not really that worthwhile. Should we have a most in one? Should we get the best of everything and put it together and it's a Frankenstack? Or do we just do something in the middle and we call it a day? I don't know. It's probably going to be an age-old debate until there's no more tech, which would probably be the end of the world.
Right. And again, each firm is going to have their own types of clients and the types of planning processes. So again, it's just how do we deliver the best result to the client? How do we have those great client conversations? How do we crush those meetings? And again, not just get so focused on, it's just one of my pet peeves. Like, oh, what does it integrate with 16 software? Why would you need this tool to integrate with every single possible? I don't need a tax planning tool necessarily to integrate perfectly with something else necessarily. So, but again, I'm okay with a little bit of manual entry because I see the bigger picture of it doesn't take me that much time.
I like it. Our third piece of news is from Telcoin, which received its final charter approval from the Nebraska Department of Banking and Finance to start its Telcoin Digital Asset Bank. Allegedly, this is the first digital asset depository institution in the country. The press release said that the charter positions Telcoin to become the first true blockchain bank, directly connecting U.S. bank accounts to regulated digital cash stablecoins. And this would be the first bank charter to explicitly authorize connecting American consumers to DeFi. I thought that this was interesting. I think this would be a great way to get people into DeFi. Although I wonder, is this really the best? What do you think about it?
Even just reading the article when it comes to crypto, there is just so much jargon. Just written language, and right now there's almost not a better way to talk about it. I think it's going to be interesting. I think I've shared on the podcast before. I'm not anti-crypto, but I'm also not a crypto bro. I'm likely somewhere in the middle. know enough to be dangerous, understand where it could potentially fit in a client portfolio. But I think this just goes back to what we've likely, I'm pretty sure we've talked about this on the podcast before, just expecting more and more options for folks to get into crypto. In this case, whether it's more of a mainstream type of bank, or there's other apps, there's other fintech that's coming out with it. It's becoming more and more integrated, and I think we're going to only see more of that. Is it a pro or a con? Ask me in 5 years, and I will give you the perfect answer.
I mean, that's totally fair. You're trying to tell me that as a financial advisor, you don't have a crystal ball, unlike all other financial planners who don't have a crystal ball and can't tell me exactly what the right answer is. That's so crazy.
I know my crystal balls were broken, unfortunately. Has been for quite some time.
Oh, all good. But absolutely a fair point that there's no way to know. It will be interesting to see how much having offerings like this, so whether it be at a bank or whether it be more digital or whatnot, how much this really draws people into the crypto culture or the DeFi culture or not. And now that it's more available, it really is just about, are people aware of it? Are they interested in it? So time will tell.
And how does it fit into their financial life already? Because again, I don't know how many years we are away from it, but, and I know at certain places will let you pay for things with crypto, but that doesn't feel mainstream, at least right now, just because a lot of the crypto on a day-to-day basis has a decent amount of fluctuation. Maybe there are some more of these stable coins that maybe I'm not as privy to or knowledgeable about, but at least some of the main crypto that comes to mind, likely you're not going to the grocery store and buying groceries with 0.001 Bitcoin at the register, or however the math ends up working out. So right now, at least from my perspective, I almost see it more as an asset class that might have some fit in the portfolio. I've heard arguments, and I think it could at times be used to, as that store of value, if you will, and to buy and exchange goods and services. But I just don't think we're there yet, just because of, again, at least from my understanding, the volatility on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, we will see how it plays out. So our last bit of news, I was kind of excited about the conversation around this. It's from Offerday's AI launch of Resume Plus, which has a voice feature so people can speak beyond just their physical resume. As Business Insider said, the average job opening in 2025 gets 2.5 times more job applications compared to what would have happened in 2019.
Wow.
Obviously, that's a big influx. Additionally, Offerday AI's applicant IQ tech goes beyond the keywords to evaluate skills and look at potential fit and company alignment. I'm trying to think of the last time that I really had to send in my resume and be evaluated. I found this interesting because I don't know about you, but as much as I write for a living, cover letters I hate.
Really? That is interesting.
I don't know how you synthesize in a way when you don't know the person. Should I be very formal? Should I be more myself? You just feel like there's no way to properly position yourself. So it felt like the voice was the way to, look, you're going to hear me and you're going to love it or hate it.
Right. I mean, I do think there's value in voice or video or more of that type of interaction versus writing. And I hadn't considered that piece, because we'll just say you're writing your cover letter to hiring manager, and you might not even know their name. You don't even know if they're, like man or a woman.
It's to whom it may concern.
To whom it may concern. And it's like anything that has to start with that, you're like, well, this may or may not land. I mean, to your point, I mean, someone might appreciate more formal and you wrote slightly more casual. Someone might love casual and you wrote too formal. So that's a great point. And I do think that if someone can speak, there's so many, even if it's vocal only and not even video, there's still going to be those nonverbal, the inflections, the tone. How does someone carry themselves? Are they speaking too quickly, too slowly? Do they seem like they're an effective communicator? Did it sound like they read what they were saying in this voice note? All important things. But I do think if someone were to not read over directly their resume, but if they could give a short clip, 60 seconds of, hey, here's some highlights, or here's my origin story, whatever the case might be, you at least get a little bit more in a pretty short period of time versus just, here's the college I graduated from back in however many years ago with this. No one cares what your grade point average in college was at this point. Let's be honest. You got your piece of paper, you got your degree. and here's your experiences at that point is likely going to be more relevant unless it's truly your first job. But yeah, I do like the idea of having your voice and maybe even video too, if that's possible.
Well, I think another way that you could look at voice, so I've tried my best to stick to like a one page or a one and like very tiny bit on the next page kind of a resume. But so looking at all those different kinds of experiences. So like if you took my life, for instance, like I was a reporter 15 years ago. So that's part of the story and it's starting to fall off the page or like to the very bottom of the page. It would be nice to sort of add like, because I was a reporter, I can do blah, 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 blah. And that's why it's important to you now versus just saying like was a reporter, was from this year to this year, did this. I don't know. I feel like adding that extra little bit of context might help. Or it might just, as Business Insider saying, if you're getting 2.5 times the job applications, maybe I just made your life a million times worse. I don't know.
Right. Or, I mean, someone could, yeah, I feel like you could make an argument for both ways. It's either more challenging because now you have to listen to this, but maybe you realize that it's actually more valuable to listen to a 60-second snippet of someone than even really going through. So maybe that's actually your first thing. So maybe someone could be just sitting and listening to the person talk. And then if something piques their interest, then maybe go to the resume. Again, I think there's going to be all sorts of things. And I wanted to ask you, have you ever hired anyone, been in the situation where you're actually doing the interviewing for anyone?
I have, yes.
Okay.
So you mean like as far as like what I evaluated and whatnot?
Yeah. And I mean, even going back to that experience, would something like this have helped on the front end going into it, or what would your take? Because I've only done mock interviews for college kids for my alma mater, but I've never actually legitimately hired someone for a real life position. So yeah, I'd be curious to even get your deeper insights because I've just done fake interviews basically.
Well, as far as that, so I've never hired somebody just off of their resume. It's always been call through whatever resumes and then get to either in person or video interview them and then decide based on all the other candidates. But I mean, I wouldn't mind as you're looking through somebody's resume. I was even evaluating somebody's, just a friend asked recently, and I was like, on this resume, it's listing things like skateboarding as like a skill. And I feel like there's a story behind that, and you're an award winning, skilled, and like because of this, you're a great teammate. And then maybe otherwise like Xnay on the 8 board scale. So, I mean, maybe something like voice would help you understand the context as to why you did this versus me just saying like, you put skateboarding on your resume? I need you to write article. What does that have to do with anything?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's fair. No, then that's helpful too. And yeah, that's interesting. I would now love some more context as to why I've never heard of someone writing skateboarding on their resume. Was it like in a hobby context, maybe of like what they were interested in, just to show more of their personal side? Again, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate as much as possible here. That's off the top of my head. That's the only thing I can really think of. Like, oh, I'm a well-rounded person. I do this cool activity.
So I'm trying to remember now exactly how it was put, at least when I read it briefly. And again, I was giving a friend some insight for their friend, so 2 degrees removed. But I think it was also somebody who, didn't have a lot of job experience, was on the younger side and whatnot. And it was like, well, how do I like fill up a page? And in that kind of case, I would just assume you talk about your job experience versus, again, so if you want to give me context as to like, this is why this matters to me, and this is why you should think that I'm great for your team because I skateboarded, whatever, then I get it. Otherwise, knowing your hobbies, I mean, I don't resonate with skateboarding. So obviously then you belong with somebody who does.
Fair. Yeah, I think the key word that you used there was context, which is even the whole point of, I feel, this tool that even if someone's able to share vocally, hopefully giving more context than, because writing, no matter how great of a writer you are, I mean, or like you are, there's still just going to be limitations versus if you can speak on it too, you have just a little bit more opportunity to share that context and the why behind why you might have worded something this way or added this to it. So yeah, big fan of context as well.
Absolutely. Well, so thank you as always for going on these treks with me. And thank you for reminding me about the good and bad of trying to find people through resumes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this was another fun conversation and got even to share a little hot take today. Wasn't expecting that. So that was a surprise to me as well.
There you go. That's a fun week. Thanks, Brandon.